role of corporate governance in Islamic financial institutions to ensure Sharia compliance, okay, to reassure stakeholders on the IFI maintain and improve growth, that the IFI maintain and improve growth, and to improve risk management. Bank Islam Malaysia Berhad declared loss for after all those years. They declared huge losses, 457 million in 2005, due to the bad financing and investment incurred by its Labuan branch. Of course, after that, with the capital injection and so on, with the turnaround strategy and so on, Bank Islam Malaysia Berhad gain profit again. Okay. Tamwil, the malpractice of Tamwil by its senior executive, okay, because commit to bribe and profiting from sales of land in Dubai project. Okay, so in order to avoid that, corporate governance must be effective and support a proper risk management. Okay, that is the role of corporate governance. And when we look at the development of corporate governance in Islamic financial institutions, as I mentioned earlier, the main references include, or the main guidance include, IFSB standard, IFSB number 3, 4, 6, 8, and 10. Okay. So table 16.3 lists out the standard under FSB and standard under IOFI that relate to corporate governance. Okay. In Malaysia, refer to Malaysian Code of Corporate Governance 2021. Please change the year. And then guidelines on corporate governance for licensed Islamic bank by Bank Negara Malaysia 2013. The principles of corporate governance for Islamic bank has 14 principles, okay, where they highlights on the requirement that the bank should comply with. For example, the bank should have effective board that heading or the to oversight the or responsible to ensure Sharia compliance. If later I will inform you about Sharia governance framework in 2010. Okay, kalau referring to Sharia governance framework 2010, the responsibility to ensure Sharia compliance lies on the Sharia committee, which responsible, or I can say the ultimate decision on Sharia matters under the responsibility of Sharia committee. But in 2003, after the Malaysian government enacted Islamic Financial Services Act, the responsibility to ensure Sharia compliance lies on the board of directors. Okay, and the principles again also highlight on the effective board composition, the responsibility of each key organs in the bank, okay, and transparency of directors' appointment, the criteria of the directors, and then the importance of having a complete and timely information for the board to refer to, okay, and there should be also a formal and ongoing assessment of the effectiveness of the board as a whole, and then transparency on the remuneration package. The importance of avoiding conflict of interest, okay, and the separation. There should be a separation between shareholder and management so as not to impede sound corporate governance, and the need for audit and regular, effective, fair communication with shareholder, and also responsibility of the board on disclosure and management of risk. Those are being highlighted by the guidelines on corporate governance for a licensed Islamic bank. And for Islamic Financial Services Act 2013, Section 29, also highlight on the importance to comply with Sharia. Okay. The comparison between Western and Islamic perspective of corporate governance. And before that, we look into the fundamental dimension of corporate governance from Islamic perspective. This foundational dimension make it different between corporate governance from Islamic and conventional perspective. Okay. First is Tawhidic epistemology. So everything created by Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has a purpose, and human beings are created to be the vicegerents of God. The firm's obligations and objective to stakeholder, and accountability principles to apply to the board or to the managers, to his own deeds as a foundation of corporate governance in Islam. Okay, so the main point here that the company or the institutions is not only accountable to shareholder, but to the stakeholder. They are responsible of their own actions, okay, but of course to fulfill their vicegerents, their accountability as vicegerents of Allah. Okay, and then shuratic process is the second foundational dimensions of corporate governance from Islamic perspective. Shuratic process meaning the widest possible participation of stakeholder in the affair of corporation. Okay, whenever decisions are made, it must take into consideration the widest possible participation, or taking consideration the interest of stakeholder, not only the shareholders. Okay, so we can see the practice of shuratic process when they have conduct meetings that take into consideration other people's say. Okay, the member in the meeting says. Yeah. Okay, and then stakeholder-oriented approach. As I mentioned just now, it is not only to increase the shareholders' wealth, but also to protect the rights and interests of all stakeholders. Okay. The principles of property rights in Islam provide a comprehensive framework to identify, recognize, respect, and protect the interests and rights of every individual, community, and corporation. Okay. The ethical dimensions of corporate governance, the importance of being just, amanah, and ihsan. Yeah? Amanah as individual, as vicegerents of God, so the ultimate accountability is to God. Ihsan, extra cautions. Yeah? We as Muslim or for the institutions that apply Islamic corporate governance, even if there is no audit, no enforcement by regulator, but they must know that Allah is watching him at all times. So every action requires extra caution, effort, and good intention. Okay. A social responsibility dimension, we can relate corporate social responsibility with taqwa. Okay, so you know that sepatutnya orang cakap Islamic banking takkanlah expensive kan. They should help the poor people and so on. Okay, so the social responsibility dimension is actually there is no enforcement on to commit the institution commit themselves towards social responsibility activities, but it is voluntary, and we can relate this much to the taqwa dimension. Walaupun tak ada apa-apa instruction, daripada regulator dan sebagainya, tetapi companies voluntarily contribute to social responsibility activities. Okay. This is to fulfill duty as vicegerent and achieve al-falah. And for example, screening of investment, dia tidaklah akan approve every application, but they do proper screening so that the applicants will not be burdened by the financial obligation if their application is approved, even if they do not have the capability to pay on time. Okay, and other example of social responsibility include excellence, customer service, employee welfare, charitable activities, etc. The comparative overview of corporate governance, Western and Islamic. Sekejap ya. Okay, so the overview, table 16.5. The comparison between the Anglo-Saxon model, European model, and Islamic model based on epistemology, rights and interests, corporate goal, nature of management, and the management board. Of course, epistemology, the faith base derived from Tawheed, from the sources of Al-Quran and Sunnah for Islamic corporate governance. And Islamic corporate governance also focus on the rights and interests of the stakeholder, which of course subject to Sharia and ethics. Okay, and the third one, Islamic corporate governance must achieve maqasid Sharia, balance between profit and social welfare. It does not focus on profit only. And in terms of nature of management, Islamic corporate governance apply the concept of vicegerency and shura. Okay, And the management board, not only they are having board of director, but also Syariah committee lah, or Syariah board. Okay. The corporate governance framework in Islamic financial institutions, the elements of separation of ownership and control, transparency and market discipline, balancing the stakeholder interests and information asymmetry. Okay, this one tu ada tu bagi Mak Aisyah tu. Okay, sorry. Okay, so now this is actually explaining on the comparison tadi lah. Corporate governance framework in IFI, table 16.6. This is about who are the key participants of corporate governance in IFI. Okay. The key participants include a regulatory authority, okay, and the interest is to ensure economic stability. For example, Bank Negara Malaysia, they are responsible to ensure economic stability. So their roles are to set regulatory framework for sound and proper corporate governance. And then supervisory authority that aim for the compliance with the law and regulation. And how do they act is by supervise and monitor the effectiveness of corporate governance. The shareholder, their interest of course to maximize wealth, maximize profit, okay, and they should act, for example, must ensure or appoint fit and proper board, which include Syariah committee. So the investment account holder, their interest is to protect their capital invested. Their roles is to monitor the investment performance. Okay. And the Syariah board, of course, their interest to ensure Syariah compliance. They will protect rights and interests of depositors and other stakeholders. The interest of the board of director is monetary and non-monetary compensation. Their action is to set the policies and the institutions' directions. And the management, their interest, of course, also monetary and non-monetary compensation. And their roles include implement direction and policy set by the board. Okay, so the corporate governance issue, since kalau dalam Islamic financial institution, there are investment account holder, yeah. For example, those that enter into a mudarabah contract, a musyarakah, they form a partnership, tapi sebenarnya they have no governance rights and representation in the governance structure. So there is a major concern that shareholder may control the board and the management to protect their interests rather than those of investment account holder. So there are regulations and supervision activities to ensure investment account holder interest is safeguarded. Apart from that, the issues of corporate governance include lack of social responsibility. Macam I cakap tadi, mungkin kita kata kalau syariah dan compliance institution ni sepatutnya they mestilah helps the poor, do donations and so on. But then there is still a lack of social responsibility issues among Islamic financial institution. They are more profit oriented But I can see that now after the pandemic COVID-19, we can see on how the financial institution being considerate, yeah, for the borrower, okay, when they offer rescheduling and so on, moratorium and so on, okay. And we can see also some Islamic financial institutions collaborate, you know, with Majlis Agama Islam dalam wakaf project, okay, social finance, paying zakat, give scholarships to students, yeah, sponsors conferences, academic conferences, and so on. So these institutions, by right, yeah, should also have social oriented, as it goes to relationship with God. Should include job creation, socio-economic development. So Syariah governance is not to replace corporate governance. Macam you cakap tadi, you tahu tak, corporate governance mesti kena follow Malaysian Code of Corporate Governance 2021. So Syariah governance ni, it is not replacing the existing governance, but they actually complement the existing corporate governance to enhance the functions of the board and the management to ensure Sharia compliance. Okay. Sharia governance framework issued by Bank Negara Malaysia. Okay. This is Sharia governance framework issued in 2010. Malaysia is considered advanced because they managed to come up with this framework. Ada Middle Eastern tu, dia masih lagi belum ada Syariah governance framework. Dia tidak ada controlling part in terms of providing guidance on Syariah governance framework. But Malaysia is advanced in that we can say the main references on Syariah governance framework is Syariah governance framework issued by Bank Negara Malaysia in 2010. It is even codified now with the Act. Yeah? Okay, if you look at this Syariah governance framework, okay, Part 1 on overview, Part 2 on 6 sections and appendices. If you later you want to answer questions, you can refer to, kalau you refer kepada this framework, you must state that referring to the SDF 2010. Okay. SDF 2010, kita panggil sini adalah SDF 2010 ataupun 2011, ya. The objective is to set out the expectation of the bank on governance of IFI, processes and arrangement to ensure Syariah compliant, provide guidance to the board, the Sharia Committee and management on discharging their duties in matters relating to Sharia, and outline functions of Sharia review, Sharia audit, Sharia risk and Sharia research. Ya. Inilah yang functions yang bawah ni. Ya. So the functions ni being outlined by Sharia governance. Ya. Scope dia must be comply by a bank that licensed under Bafia Act. Dulu Bafia Act lah, ya. Takaful Act, Takaful and Pre-Takaful Operator, financial institutions that participate in the Islamic banking scheme, and DFI. Okay, and it shall take effect starting 1st January 2011. So the IFR shall be given 6 months to comply. So the studies highlights that Islamic financial institution dia tak ada masalah pun untuk comply dengan framework ni. Most of Islamic banking already have the functions, okay. For example, they already have audit function, head of Sharia and so on. It is just the matter of them to make it official, okay. And to set up specific lah. Ada functions tu yang dia functions tu telah dijalankan tapi tidak ada specific department ataupun unit lah on that. So that is the challenge of them to comply lah. These functions tu actually being delivered lah. Okay. So these are the general requirement. Must establish a sound and robust Syariah governance. Dia kena follow specific requirement in the framework. Okay, ini adalah framework yang sama yang ditunjukkan di dalam slide. Okay. The accountability and responsibility of key organs. Okay, Syariah Committee apa responsibility dia, management apa responsibility dia, okay, and the importance of independence. Okay, in order to ensure independence, all appointment of Syariah Committee shall be made by the board subject to approval by the bank and the Sharia Advisory Council of Bank Negara Malaysia. The bank ni maksudnya Bank Negara Malaysia lah. Okay, so sepatutnya tidak adalah a threat from the board kata okay, Sharia Committee you need to approve this product, if not we are going to terminate you. Tak ada lah macam tu sebab it has been controlled that the appointment and removal of the committee shall be made subject to approval of Bank Negara Malaysia. And then competency, okay, confidentiality and consistency, ethics, professional ethics, and robust Sharia compliance functions. If you look at this, these are Sharia compliant functions. Sharia risk, Sharia review, and Sharia audit is the Sharia compliance functions that the bank must establish. Okay, so these sections explain about what is Sharia review, okay, Sharia audit, Sharia risk, Sharia research functions. There is no specific guidelines tapi ada general guidelines sahajalah. Okay, so it depends on the bank on how to establish these functions as long as they comply with the requirement. Kalau macam you tengok di sini, Sharia risk dia report to the board risk committee and dotted line to the management. Ada bank Sharia risk dia report kepada head of Sharia and board risk management committee, dual reporting. Ada yang report satu sahaja. So it depends on the institutions lah, tapi mesti comply with the Bank Negara Malaysia requirement. So the list of related guideline, the criteria of Sharia Committee. Kalau you tengok Sharia Committee ni, dia punya kriteria member must be Muslim. Qualification of Sharia Committee must be Muslim. Individual, bukannya company. At least bachelor degree in Sharia, usul fiqh, fiqh muamalat. It is reasonable to expect majority of Sharia Committee able to demonstrate strong proficiency and knowledge in written and verbal Arabic. Okay. Comprised of relevant background, finance, law, accounting. Yeah. If you look at the dalam you dah dapat dah kan soalan untuk group project tu? Dah dapat dah ke? Dah ada ke dapat? Soalan untuk annual report analysis tu ada tak?
Belum, Doktor.
Belum ke? Ha? Belum ke?
Macam belum. Belum, Doktor. Tak ada lagi.
Tak ada. Oh, tak ada lagi Saya ingat dah bagi dah. Okay, I akan bagi selepas ni. From the assignment, I think one of it you need to look at on the appointment of Syariah Committee. Siapa dia, apakah report yang dibuat. Disqualifications of Syariah Committee. And then bilangan Saya rasa ada bilangan di sini Saya tengok macam ada tak fine. Okay. The number of Syariah Committee members to be appointed must not be less than 5. Okay. The majority of whom must possess strong knowledge in Syariah and backed by the appropriate qualification in that area. Okay. So later you need to look at the Syariah Committee nomination of appointment by the bank. Memang dia akan ikutlah not less than 5 Okay. So ini okay. So those are about Syariah governance framework. Okay. And then the institutional arrangement in Syariah governance, the board, additional Syariah board in IFI, internal Syariah review, internal Syariah compliance, Syariah compliant risk. It is additional, it's not going to replace. Ini, these are the explanation on Syariah board. You can refer to the framework. Here again, I highlight on the minimum of 5 members and so on. The role of Syariah board, the process, this is, and then Syariah compliance process, Syariah coordination. Kalau you tengok Syariah coordination ni tadi, dia ada Syariah secretariat, Syariah review function, Syariah audit, and the content of Syariah report in the annual report. And then these are the issues of Syariah governance, independence of Syariah board, competency and conflict of interest, disclosure, transparency and consistency. Okay. The legal status of Syariah pronouncement, and this part actually explain about Malaysian experience. So For Malaysian Islamic financial institutions, they refer to Bank Negara Malaysia Guideline. IOFI dia refer kalau as a basic guidelines for syariah, tapi yang dia mandatory to comply tu adalah from Bank Negara Malaysia ya. Ini IFSB tadi saya dah nyatakan. Okay. And ethics ni we have gone through in detail in the earliest chapter. Okay. So as you can see here, this one tadi dia issued pada tahun bila? When it is issued? Syariah Governance Framework. Tahun berapa ni dikeluarkan? Syariah Governance Framework. Baru je tadi cerita. Bila?
2011.
2011 ya, boleh 2010 pun boleh lah, biasa sebut 2010. Okay. And then in 2019 there is a new Sharia governance policy being issued. Which looks like this. Okay. Awalnya ada Syariah Governance Framework 2010. Kemudian recently Syariah Governance Policy is being issued that supersedes Syariah Governance Framework. Ya. Dia dibatalkan lah, yang lama ni dibatalkan, dikeluarkan yang baru. So kalau you nak jawab soalan tu, that's why I say content jawapan you tu kalau you refer kepada yang lama, you sebutlah you refer kepada yang lama. If you did not mention, meaning I assume that it is the latest. Sharia Governance Policy issued in 2019 to strengthen the Sharia governance requirement. Okay, the development in Islamic financial industry, dia Sharia Governance Framework 2010. Lepas tu 2013 Malaysian keluarkan Islamic Financial Services Act. So selepas itu Sharia Governance Policy dikeluarkan, taking consideration the requirement di dalam dalam Islamic Financial Services Act 2013. Kalau yang lama ni dia dikeluarkan sebelum Islamic Financial Services Act 2013. So yang ni selepas. Okay. So let's look at the new policy. The policy are applicable to Islamic financial institution. Okay. This policy document is issued pursuant to Islamic Financial Services Act 2013 and Development Financial Institution Act 2002. Okay. So tengok dia, okay, kita tengoklah section 277 tu apa. Section 29 tu Section 29 tu is on the need for the institution to comply with Sharia. Section 277 okay, di dalam undang-undang, di dalam Act, Islamic Financial Services Act, maksudnya mesti kena comply. Section 277 is about power of bank to issue guidance. The bank refer to Bank Negara Malaysia, may issue guidance in writing to any person or to any class, category or descriptions of person consisting of such information, advice or recommendation as it considers with respect the provision of this act for the purpose out of achieving the regulatory objective or with respect to the other matter. Maksudnya, these sections highlight that Islamic financial institutions kena comply dengan syariah governance policy ni. Bukan syariah governance policy sahaja, tetapi apa-apa guidance yang dikeluarkan oleh Bank Negara Malaysia. Okay, so this policy document comes into effect on 1st April 2020, tahun lepas, with the exceptions of 12.5 punya sections. Okay, this policy document supersedes the following. So dia dah batalkan yang 2010 tadilah. Okay. Okay, the difference yang the former framework, the former very specific, it is rule based. Tapi yang the latter policy document yang baru ni dia principle based. Okay, dia tak spesifikkan setiap satu, so that bank yang kecil pun boleh comply sebab it is principle based. Kalau small banks maybe do not has the capability to comply with the previous requirement to have specific items and so on. So but they can comply with this new policy as long as they justify what have been done by their institutions. Okay. So the key responsibility of the board, okay, interaction with Sharia committee, key responsibilities of Sharia committee, okay, Sharia committee meetings, and dia dah lebih stringent lah. Kalau you tengok dia dah sebut FI must hold Sharia committee meetings at least once in every 2 months. Okay. 12.5 ni dia exclude untuk di comply sebab Sharia committee member must not serve the same IFI for more than 9 years. So sebab year ni baru lagi enforce, so dia tak comply lagi lah dengan ini 2020, in later years baru dia akan comply. Baru required to comply. Okay. And IFI shall ensure that Sharia committee must be of a sufficient size that reflects the business needs, enable a conducive environment. Must ensure its Sharia committee at minimum comprise at least 5 Sharia committee member. Majority are Sharia qualified person. Chairman must be a Sharia qualified person. Okay. Tapi kalau bukan full flash, bukan kalau bank yang offer Islamic window, Sharia committee dia at least 3 sahaja. Okay. Where there is more than one IFI within a financial group, Section 30 subsection 2 of the Islamic Financial Services Act states that one of the IFI may submit application to the bank for its approval to establish a single Sharia committee to serve the entire financial group. So kita tengok ada flexibility lah. Tapi of course, the requirement to comply with Sharia is more strict. Is stricter. And then responsibility of management, The control functions, kalau you tengok, the functions include Syariah risk, Syariah review and Syariah audit. Dia tak ada lagi, dia letak Syariah research di sini ya. Sebelum ni ada. Okay. The explanation on Syariah risk management, Syariah review, Syariah audit, okay, and the Syariah compliance culture. The board must ensure that the remuneration policy and performance measure for senior officers responsible for ensuring Syariah compliance reinforce the risk culture that is in line with Syariah governance objective. And then they highlight on transparency and disclosure. Let's look at the difference. Yeah? Okay, ini the key differences between SDF and SGP. SDF in 2010, dia tak required for how many years. SGP dah tetapkan maximum of 9 years. Silence on the politically exposed Syariah committee member in previous framework. But in the new policy, dia dah sebutkan must not be an active politicians. Yeah? Key responsibility, sebelum ni ada roles. Key responsibility dia dah specify document and deliberation and justification on the Syariah committee decision, okay, to ascertain board view, ensure immediate notification of to bank negara. Kalau you tengok di sini, dia lebih strict lah. Dia lebih strict. The requirement in SGP as compared to SDF. SDF ni I can say dia nak put the governance in place dulu. Okay. And then baru dia become more strict lah. And then this is about Syariah review functions and Syariah research functions. Sebelum ni Syariah research functions dia ada specific function. Now dia consolidated under the Syariah secretariat functions. Yeah. Before this, Syariah review function conducted by qualified Syariah officer. Sekarang ni officers who perform Syariah review have sound understanding of Syariah relevant Syariah requirement and may include officers with Syariah qualification. Okay. Maybe they are taking consideration on the availability of a qualified Syariah officer to fulfill the functions. Okay. Any question on Syariah governance? Any question? Or is it clear apa dia Syariah governance?
No question, madam.
Okay.
Clear, madam.
Yeah. So Syariah governance ni apa sebenarnya? Anyone? Apa sebenarnya Syariah governance? Ada yang nak cuba jawab?
Okay.
Okay.
Syariah governance is a system that conduct according to the Sharia principle and it is controlled by the Sharia Committee Board.
Okay. Kalau kita sebut governance, kita nak tengok kepada interrelationship lah between the board, the management, the key organs lah in the institutions to ensure Syariah compliance. Apakah guidelines yang boleh bank refer untuk establish dia punya Syariah governance? Dokumen apa yang dia refer? Anyone? Untuk establish syariah governance dekat bank masing-masing, dia nak kena refer kepada apa? Requirement yang mana? Dokumen yang mana?
Syariah Governance Framework dengan Syariah Governance Policy.
Dia kena satu je. Syariah governance policy lah yang latest. Lagi apa? Dokumen apa lagi? Sebab Syariah Governance Policy dia dah supersede the Syariah Governance Framework 2010 tu. Dia comply with the latest one lah. Dokumen apa lagi yang dia orang boleh refer? Anyone? Ada tak? Apa lagi?
Madam, kalau Malaysian Code of Corporate Governance?
Itu in general. Tapi kalau untuk syariah governance, dia akan refer kepada IFSB dengan IOF punya standard. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so I think you can have you can read further on syariah governance. Tengok dulu macam mana. So next week kita akan jawab soalan lah untuk governance. So dia akan keluar satu soalan dalam final lah untuk corporate governance. Dan at the end of kejap lagi lah kot, I akan bagi soalan untuk group project lah. So you can also work on that too. Okay. So I think that's all for today.
Peter?
Ya.
Saya nak tanyalah. Kan regarding dengan syariah ni kan. Dia bukan, saya rasa soalan saya ni tidaklah melibatkan dalam apa kita belajar. Cuma saya nak bertanya sajalah kalau madam tahu.
Okay.
Adakah macam kalau kita sebagai accounting, kita kan accounting student, so saya nak tanya kalau kita peluang pekerjaan kalau kita ambil macam benda macam ni kan, sama ada dekat bank sahaja ke macam mana madam?